I've closed big ticket sales. Got myself, Kevin, and Anthony over there.
Hey guys.
And today, what we're going to go over is appointment setting and how to build out a team of appointment setters. But first, before we even get into that, let's talk a little bit about uh, what appointment setting actually even is. So, this is something that Anthony actually introduced me to when we were doing this for clients. But how would you describe like what appointment setting is?
So appointment setting is just the act of getting yourself on sales calls where you can showcase your product, showcase its value, and really get someone to pay for your services. Now, it could be in a multiple different ways you set appointments. Could be phone calls, could be DMs, could be paid ads. But setting the appointment is getting them on the actual sales call.
Yep. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do appointment setting now. And DM setting is pretty popular just because Instagram is very popular. That's where everybody is. And it's great. But what we found to be a good breakthrough is actually making phone calls. And I think the reason why is just because not as many people in these types of online marketing businesses actually pick up the phone and do sales calls or appointment setting. So it's not as busy as a DM inbox. And what would you say are kind of like the benefits of phone setting over DM setting, though?
The benefits of phone setting is there's a lot more of a personalized touch. So unlike a
Hmm.
DM or a cold email, you're pretty much speaking to someone. They're getting to know your personality right off the bat, and everything that you could say that you wouldn't say on an email or a DM, you could just say to them over the phone.
Yep. And sometimes a mistake people make is that like when you're DM setting, it just sounds very robotic and it's very scripted. On a phone call, you can't really do that. I mean, it might sound scripted, but you can obviously train people on how to become a better appointment setter. But when you're actually speaking to a real human being, there's not really like a way of faking that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big thing on a phone call is that normally, if somebody has any questions or concerns, they can ask you right then
Yeah.
and there, rather than relying on email or DM. You have to mostly worry about if they're even going to answer to you or even look at your message, let alone respond to it. Whereas a phone call, once you're on the line with them, pretty much half the work is done. You just have to present your offer, get them interested, pre-qualify them, and book them.
Yep. So yeah, that's essentially what an appointment setter is. They uh they have your leads, they book appointments, they start conversations with your audience, and then they schedule a phone call because most likely you're selling something high ticket where it can't be done on just a sales page. So usually with business owners, they sell something high ticket. You need to speak to somebody. So you got appointment setters penciling people into onto the calendar, setting up an appointment, pre-qualifying them, pre-selling them, so that it's easier for the salesperson to close them. But I guess that's kind of a good segue into what we're going to talk about, like the importance of having good appointment setters for closers. So let's talk a little bit about that. What's the importance of having a good appointment setter if you have a sales team?
Well, having a good appointment center can really make or break your offer there, because a good appointment center, hopefully, if you compensate them properly, they'll be incentivized to actually get you more sales. Okay. Now, a good appointment center, they can not only find the people that are interested, but they have a good vetting process normally if you train them up right, where they know the right customers that are going to work with you, their budget, their
Hmm.
timeline, everything to really set it up so that when your client hits the sales call, they're already halfway sold there.
Yep. And another thing too is that you don't want your salespeople to do the appointment setting, and that's something I do see some business owners do. They have a sales team and they tell them, all right, set your own appointments. And the problem with that is that when you do that, it's a quick way for them to burn out. They're having to do data entry, having to deal with the CRM, having to schedule appointments, follow up with them. You if you have a sales team, you want them to if you want to grow and close more deals, is that you want to have them focus on just closing deals, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it all goes back down to that rule where, like, if you're doing one thing a lot, you're going to be a lot better than somebody that has to do multiple
That's a
things.
good point.
Somebody who spends 8 hours of their day appointment setting, they're going to be a lot better than somebody who has to juggle between that, sales calls, updating the CRM and so forth. So it's better to have one person for each position. That way they're specialized, and that way they'll be a lot more effective at that one job.
Yep. No, for sure. So that's essentially like why it's important to have an appointment setter. And usually, I mean, it really depends on the business, but the ones that we've worked with, usually they have a lead list. If you have a lead list, those are hot leads that you can call, and it's gonna be much easier to book those appointments opposed to, a cold lead that you just bought and you called. So if it's a warm lead list, we're usually looking at around 3 to even 8 appointments per day per appointment setter. Really depends on the list. On a cold list, it's 1 or 2 appointments per day. But that's something that's pretty important as well. Just tracking your KPIs. So making sure that you know the numbers, and if any of your appointment setters are kind of lagging behind, you want to have that key performance indicator so that you can kind of keep that standard, not just for them, but for everybody else as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And set the expectation with your appointment setters. Really make sure that they know how many appointments they're supposed to be setting on a daily basis. Now, how you do that is you really do gauge your list quality, right? Now, if you have a lot of people
Mhm.
that have signed in through a paid ad, this is an example of a warmer list, because not only are those people in your list, but they've opted in to be on your list to either receive a free guide, free training, or just to learn more about your offer. Whereas, if you buy a list online of people and they have no idea who you are, no idea why you're reaching out to them, and that's when you might have to lower your KPI just until your appointment setters get to a point where they are ramped up and they know how to convert those guys.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the misconceptions of dialing and cold calling and calling leads. Some people think it's spam. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I would get that thought out of your head there. And thinking your offer is spam is the same as being afraid to post online when you have something to share.
Hmm.
Being scared to ask somebody to invest into your business, to offer your services there. The more people you get in front of, the more opportunity you have to showcase why you do deserve to be in business and why they should partner up with you. So get that thought out of your head.
Yeah, and especially if you have a good product or service, it's counterintuitive. It's not going to help you at all, and especially if they are leads that opted into the offer. At one point, they did express interest into learning more. So you want to make sure you're contacting them, making sure that you can book an appointment with them as well. And it's kind of like what Jay Abraham says. It's a strategy of preeminence. It's taking care of your clients and doing whatever you can to help them out. So making those calls, setting up an appointment, giving them information is in their best interest as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you touched on that as well. Having the mindset that you're solving somebody's problem is extremely important, because if you just have that mindset of like, oh, will you buy my stuff? That's normally the mindset of a very poor salesperson or a poor appointment setter. Whereas if you call somebody knowing that they have a specific issue that you could potentially help them solve, or you could be of benefit to them in any type of way, that's going to give you a lot more conviction when you speak, and that's really going to help you book more appointments and make more sales.
Yeah. Script or no script?
Personally, I would start off with a script if you're unfamiliar with the product, but the more you do it, the more you can veer off. But that really does take experience. If you're somebody who's new, if you're somebody who, you're almost anxious to get on that phone or talk to somebody new, I recommend using a script, because that's something you could easily follow, even if you kind of like get jumbled or lose your words. But once you get more experience, definitely going off the script, that's where you're going to find a lot more success.
Yeah, I agree. And that's yeah, for sure. It's starting off with a script is going to be much more beneficial for your team to have than going off script. And once they do get more experience, more booked appointments, more wins under the belt, that's where you can kind of be a little bit more fluid in going off script. But appointment setters that I see that don't have good results in booking appointments are the ones that just go off script and just completely off the rail, and the reason why usually is just because they're not following that script. And the important thing there is obviously having a winning script. We use a lot of good templates, but so would you say like are the structures of or parts of like a good script?
A good script is, obviously the introduction, getting the hook, making sure that they're interested
Mhm.
enough to stay on the phone with you, talking about case studies, meaning examples of clients that you're either doing well for or that you have done well for in the past. Talking about sharing strategies at no obligation, meaning you can show them what you're doing for your previous client, and all they have to do is hop on a call to see that strategy. No obligations there. Just hop on that call. We'll show you that strategy. And then also, figuring out a good time and date once they are interested in meeting up with you. And the last thing there is obviously pre-qualifying them. You don't want just anybody hopping on the call. You want to make sure it's a client that has the potential to work with you. So those questions are important as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of good points there, and that's maybe something we can go over another time in another video on, all the important parts of a cold call script
Definitely.
for appointment setting. But let's wrap it up there. I think those were a lot of good points there, and in the next video we'll talk about the structure and the ingredients to a good call script.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And one last thing there, if you guys need any help at all in terms of coming up with a script, setting appointments for you, yourself, or your business, we actually have a new offer here. If you visit the link www.bestcallers.co, you can learn more about our offer and how we can help you potentially book more sales calls for your business.
Yep, check it out if you guys are interested in generating more sales, more appointments. Go to bestcallers.co. Is that right?
Yep.
Awesome. Totally forgot to